today to talk to you about northern giant hornet, Vespa mandarinia. So as I go throughout this PowerPoint, I'm going to briefly introduce it to you, talk about what's been found, what USDA does, and then kind of wrap it up with things that you can take home and things that you can do in your own backyard. So when you think about northern giant hornet, right, what are a couple of things that come to mind, or what would you want to call it? You might have heard it called Asian giant hornet. It has some other less common nicknames like yak killer hornet, giant sparrow bee, but I'm sure there's all one word that you know it well as, and that would be murder hornet. So it was first discovered in Washington in December 2019 in Blaine. A resident found a dead hornet out on his back porch, right? Grabbed attention of the media, and that's how we came to that term murder hornet. But we work really hard to teach y'all that it does threaten agriculture and it can sting and harm us, but its goal is to really murder honeybees. And this is what makes the hornet so deadly to our environment, is because it actually specializes in attacking and decimating these honeybees. So that impacts agriculture, and obviously there's that human health, but if northern giant hornet were to establish, it really could harm our pollinators. So we want to learn how to identify northern giant hornet and set it apart from other of our other bugs. So there's two things that you can really look for. Other than its sheer size, it's going to be that 1.5 to 2 inches, but you want to look for its head. Now, this is different than others because it's about as big and as wide as its body. So it's essentially if I had a pumpkin for my head, right? It goes all the way out to my shoulders the same way. That's going to be different from other insects. And then look at the striping or the banding on its abdomen. They're kind of uniform lateral lines that go straight across. So remember these two things, and then also its body is black when kind of looking in comparison. So I have it side by side here with the cicada killer. Now, especially if you live in Eastern Washington, this is going to be one of the most commonly reported insects that gets confused with the hornet, because it's one that can get almost to that 2 inches in size, as you see here. But remember our features, look for the size and the shape of its head, right? Do you see how it's just not there in comparison to its body? And then again, on the abdomen, you'll see some spots or some teardrops. That is how you're going to identify northern giant hornet. A couple other things you want to know about the hornet is its nest. Hornets are typically not aggressive towards us humans unless we make them mad. However, if you get close to its nest, it comes out to protect its nest, and that's typically when people are swarmed and when they can get stung. Now, a thing to know about its nest is you're not going to see it hanging from a tree. It's going to be inside of like a tree cavity. Let me turn my volume down. 1 second. Okay. From current slide. Okay. So the nest you see here, it's going to be like inside something. Typically what they'll do is they'll find a forested area at the base of a rotted tree or an animal burrow. They'll dig into the ground, excavate that, and build combs a couple feet wide. However, they can nest in tree cavities, like alder trees that you see here, or sometimes even inside human structures. And they will produce hundreds of hornets with multiple combs. Now, the one thing to note is that when the hornet emerges from the nest, is its full adult size. So there's never going to be such a thing as a baby northern giant hornet. So when you're looking out and when you're being out and around looking for the hornets, remember you won't see the nest, but you could see the evidence that they're coming and going. So this video I have for you here, you can see hornets as they're coming to and leaving from the nest. Now, these are the worker hornets, and they're doing the work. They're finding insects and bringing them back for food, and they're excavating the nest, taking those parts out and bringing things back to help make the nest bigger. So that gives us into talking about its life cycle. Really quick, we're going to go over what they do when. This will help you understand when you can look for the hornet, as well as help you understand what we do here in Washington and why. So we're going to spend a minute on this graphic. The first thing we're going to do is look at the top, which is going to be the winter months. So in the winter, the only thing that's alive are the new queens, and they are overwintering. Then as we get closer into the spring, they will wake up and they will start to build their underground nests or their nests in tree cavities. As we get into the warmer months, like right about now, they'll start be making a couple workers, and those workers will begin to go out and forage. Then the queen, she's going to stay inside that nest. As we move and get closer into the summer, that's when we could really start to see the workers because there's enough of them out and about. So kind of that July time, if there are hornets present, is really the time where we can start looking for them. And then as we leave the summer, that colony is going to reach its maturity and they're going to be hungry because of this. So they're going to start eating more and looking for more food in that fall time because that queen is now making new queens and males, right? After the new queens and males leave the nest, they mate very close. The males and the workers will die. That queen that started the nest will die, but those new queens will overwinter. And then they'll wake up in the spring to start their nests again. So that's kind of the basic life cycle of the northern giant hornet. Now, as we look at this, we kind of see how it goes from yellow to orange to red. And maybe you picked up on this as we were talking about the life cycle. The queen starts, we have the workers, but then they get really hungry. So if we look at that fall time again, we notice that they start to get really hungry. So that's when they'll target entire beehives. They're doing this because of the new queens and the males. Now the queens and the males, they just happen to be bigger. So when they start to lay the bigger insects, that's why they need the more food. And that's why they'll really go after the honeybees. They don't always do that. Throughout their life, this is what it kind of looks like. They'll fly out, they'll grab one individual insect, rip off its wings, rip off its legs, mash it up into a ball that you see on the screen here, and take it back to feed their young. And they don't eat just honeybees. They happen to actually eat other flies, beetles, bees, other yellow jackets, wasps, even butterflies, dragonflies, and other flying, stinging things. However, in that fall time, when they decide to get really hungry, here's how they go after the honeybees. So they'll always fly around in that hunting phase, but then they decide they find a hive and they'll mark it with a pheromone, and this will signal its other hornet friends to come here and help. Once the hornets get there, the honeybees will exit the hive to try to protect themselves. But little do they know that the hornets are actually going to systematically grab every single honeybee, chop off their heads, and drop their bodies. So then we have all of our bees just dead laying outside on the ground in front of the hive. What they actually are going to do is they're going to go inside the hive and harvest the honeybee's brood in the pupae and take it back to feed their own. Okay, they don't touch the honey. But this is what makes the hornets so deadly to the honeybees. Now, if I have, a handful of hornets, say 5 to 12, and I have a beehive has about 45 to 65,000 happy, strong, healthy bees in it. And I have those 5 to 12 hornets. How long do you think it'll take them to wipe out all those adult bees? Now, the answer is around 90 minutes. So that's why if the northern giant hornet were to establish here, it could really damage a lot of our pollination. We could lose a lot of our plants, a lot of things we eat, as well as maybe even some sacred or beneficial things you have to your nation. So that's kind of it on the background of the hornet. Typically, I'd pause for questions, but due to the lack of time, I'm going to keep going. If you have any burning questions on the hornet I didn't answer, post them in the chat box because I did leave a little bit of time at the end where we can address them. So now that you understand the background of the hornet, I want to talk about the goal here. And the goal is eradication or complete removal, right? That fancy word. Now, if I want to get rid of all of the hornets, I want to find the mother lode, which is going to be the nest, right? If I can get rid of the nests, I'm getting rid of most of the hornets. If I'm getting rid of the hornets before I get to them in that fall time, She hasn't had any queens leave the nest yet. That keeps them from moving forward. So where have we found hornets in Washington? It's going to be Whatcom County. Here's my map. You see the red county outlined there. If you go towards the border even further, I'm going to zoom into that northwest corner of Whatcom County. The black line on the map here is going to be the border of Canada. It's going to be about a 30-minute drive north and south and east and west. Any spot you see there is going to be a single detection of the hornets. Any star you see is going to be a hornet nest that's been removed. So in the last years, we've removed 4 nests from the area and had multiple detections. Last year, in 2022, was actually the first year we did not have any detections of northern giant hornet or any nests removed. However,
Cassie, you have about 4
we're
minutes
not out
left.
of the woods yet. Our goal is to keep looking for the hornets. We have to have multiple years of seeing nothing to consider them completely eradicated. So here's how we find the nests. And here's actually how you can help detect and see if there's hornets in your backyards. So our goal is to lure them in or survey for them using traps. Our traps consist of a mixture of orange juice and rice cooking wine. The idea is that the trap hangs from a tree. It has openings near the top. A slight breeze can carry the scent of that bait, and as the hornet flies by, it's lured into the trap and essentially drowns and dies. Then we have a detection of a northern giant hornet. What we can do next is we can spring into action, putting other traps around that trap, as well as hanging out in that area with a net. Because our goal is to eventually capture a live northern giant hornet. If we've detected where the hornet is once, chances are it'll be back or one of its friends will come back by. So once we have captured that northern giant hornet, what we're going to do is attach a radio tag transmitter to it, chill it out on some ice, tie it on with some Kevlar thread, let the hornet warm up, feed it some strawberry jam, and then we let the hornet go. Now, if you think about it, if you've been kidnapped from home and you're let go, where do you run off to? So essentially the hornet is going to fly off. It's going to leave, take the transmitter and head back to the nest. Then what we can do is we can follow the signal to find the nest.
Cassie, 2 minutes
Once we
left.
get to the nest, our goal is to remove it. So we're going to put on our fancy suits to keep us safe. The stinger of a northern giant hornet is about 1/4 inch. So imagine like a thinner thumbtack, right? And they're capable of stinging multiple times. When we get to the nest, they can come out and swarm us. So we want to make sure that we're safe. Once we have the nest secured, what we're going to do is essentially suck the hornets out with a modified vacuum. You can see in the picture here where they end up in that clear chamber. Once all the hornets are sucked out, they're froze and sent off for research. The nest is removed, and again, those are froze as well. That way, no hornets are able to move forward. Then we have a successful removal of eradication of a hornet nest. So that's kind of essentially what the hornet is and the process here in Washington. The last thing I want to do is show you some resources on how you can find out more about the hornet, as well as where you can find how you can help other than just contacting me. So we have the website. It's agr.wa.gov/hornets. Now, if you are on this website, you can scroll down to a section that says Stay Informed. You click the link to sign up. That's how you sign up for email alerts. I'm actually going to be sending one out this month. It's called a Hornet Herald. It tells you what's going on with the program and things you can look forward to, things you can sign up for, and where we're at with the hornets. If you're into Facebook, you can join the group there. The other thing you can find on that homepage is how to be involved. So there's a couple different ways that you can help, or you can become a public scientist or a community science, help out your nation, make sure the hornets aren't in your backyard. The most popular program we have is trapping. Just like I told you, we have orange juice and rice wine hanging from a tree in a bottle. You can do that as well. We also encourage people to watch paper wasp nests from July throughout the fall, because we have seen and people have seen hornets repeatedly attacking wasp nests. Right now in the springtime, just keep your eyes open in case you see a queen. However, that's really not as likely because the population would just be so low. So again, these resources you can find on the website, but also you can contact me. If you forget to take anything away from today, there's one thing that's super important, and the one thing you can tell anybody to do. If you suspect to see a northern giant hornet, what should you do? Well, I hope you guys could hear me. I turned my volume down.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. The video was big. Okay, so if you if there's one thing that you should do, you're all gonna tell me report, but before you report, you have to do one thing. Try to get a picture. Okay, taking a picture of a northern giant hornet gives us something that we can follow up on. We can say, yes, that is a hornet, and then we can act, or we can follow up with you and help you identify what that insect is. So if you ever suspect to see a hornet, take a picture and then report it. So that's kind of it from me. I wanted to leave a little bit of time. If there's questions, or to be able to answer it too, I will go ahead and I'll type the website into that chat box as well as an email. You can reach out to myself, as well as there's a general email in case you have any questions. The last thing I kind of want to leave you with, as sovereign nations, you do have the opportunity to be a cooperator with myself and the team here at USDA. I had mentioned, I'll go back, that there is this trapping program. Anyone in Washington is actually encouraged to gather the materials to hang and monitor traps. It starts in July and it ends in October. But as a sovereign nation, if there's a group of you that are interested in trapping, what I can do is I can actually gather the supplies and supply you with the orange juice and rice cooking wine needed for the season. And then you're just in charge of monitoring and doing the work on the ground. So that's kind of it from me. I will leave it at this page. My contact information is here, but I will pop that into the web page as well as with an alternate email into the chat box.
Be submitted to a diagnostic lab, and there's a rapid, if you will, ELISA that only takes a day or two to do. It's not like an animal side test, or the animal, the tissues are looked at under the microscope using a special stain to see the accumulation of prions. We really can't reliably diagnose the disease in live animals. We need the head of the animal after death to make the diagnosis for sure.
2 minutes.
Okay, so again, some final take-home messages. I would argue this is the most important disease in wildlife. It's a unique class of disease, being a prion disease, and these environments are contaminated for a long time once they become contaminated. We really need to be doing surveillance, particularly in areas where the disease hasn't been identified yet. If you ever have an animal that you think might have chronic wasting disease, the best thing is to take the head. There's a portion of the brain and retropharyngeal lymph node, it's called, that can be submitted for testing. Remember, don't shoot the animal in the head if it's a CWD suspect, because we want that brain tissue intact. The disease is not known to be transmitted to humans, but CDC recommends that these animals, if they're CWD suspects, not be consumed by humans. And if you'd like to know more, there's lots and lots of literature out there on CWD now, but Escobar has a nice review paper. So if you have additional questions about surveillance or about submitting samples, please let me know, and I'm always happy to talk more.